Achieving your ultimate goal. So what is it? Have I gotten your curiosity? How could I possibly know what your ultimate goals are? How dare I even think this way? But you know what? I think I can really say what it is. You might tell me that my ultimate goal is to make a huge difference in the world. My ultimate goal is to raise my children to be strong individuals and make a difference in their lives and the people that they get to know and touch. You might say, no, my goal is to make $1 billion, $1 million, $100 million. No, my goal is just to be the best I am moment to moment. See, you might say my goal is to have a sailboat and go around the world. But the truth is, none of those are your ultimate goal. What are you doing it all for? Why are you working so hard to support your children and get them to be good people? Why are you really wanting to make a difference? Why do you want the sailboat? Why do you want the Jaguar or the Ferrari? Or why is it that you want to travel around the world? What's the sailboat for? What is all this stuff that's been driving you? What's really behind it all? And the answer, I believe, is there's only one goal you really have: to be happy. You really want, and you may word it differently than I'm using. You may not use the word happiness, but you want a consistent sense of pleasure within your being. And you know what? You deserve it. But there's a problem. The problem is that you and I have been conditioned. We've been conditioned in a variety of ways that keep us from really having the happiness that we pursue so heavily. It's right there within us right now. We don't have to do anything for it. And you and I know that intellectually, right? We go, yeah, I know I could be happy. So why aren't you? And you might say, well, I am happy. Are you happy all the time? I know I'm not, but I'm getting better because I'm beginning to learn how to take control of this thing between my ears. I'm learning how to direct and control my own mind. And the better I get at that, the happier I am. So I thought it might be nice in this month's conversation for you and I to really talk about what the heck is this thing called happiness? How do we get it? Or maybe better yet, how do we experience it more consistently? What prevents us and what can allow us to experience it more? You know, I was reading an article in Newsweek, and the cover article was about Prozac, Prozac. It's our nation's most prescribed antidepressant. It hit the market way back in December of 1987. According to the article, 15 million Americans are clinically depressed, which is a great way to give yourself a label to feel bad about even more on a consistent basis. All these people are taking this drug like it's coming out their ears, and they want it because it has less side effects than the other antidepressants. The other things that are supposed to keep us from feeling bad so we can eventually feel good and be happy. But there is a problem. There are side effects even to this new drug that's new and improved. The old antidepressants used to have really unpleasant side effects. You know, things like being deadly. If you took them and you ate pickles, you die. That's kind of a negative side effect. Not only that, created low blood pressure, created some heart disturbances, which could affect your happiness in the long term, at least the people around you. Things like sluggishness, dizziness, blurred vision, constipation, and weight gain. Given the alternatives, I think some patients would opt for depression. The bottom line is, I'm not going to do this, but they say, no, we've got a new solution to your happiness. Prozac. It's the solution. And we're going to go for it to the tune of $500 million this year. But unfortunately, it has side effects too, although we don't talk about that too much because we're all looking for the instant fix to happiness. Give me a chemical and everything will be great. But, Prozac's got some problems. It gives you headaches. It makes you nauseated. It causes insomnia. It makes you jittery. And those are just the light ones. What are the bigger problems? Well, bigger problems are things like heart seizures. In fact, there was an article recently written by a research team from Harvard Medical School. It was headed up by Dr. Martin Teicher. Their research reported that in 3.5% of the patients who took Prozac, patients, by the way, who previously had not been manic, violent, or suicidal, that 3.5% of those people became intensely violent and had a suicidal preoccupation after only 2 to 7 weeks of using the drug. What's my point in this whole conversation? My point is we're a culture that's been conditioned to reach for an instant solution to receive happiness, to get away from the pain and get the pleasure. What is happiness? It's feeling good. And we've all learned different ways to do it. Some of us have learned that what we need to do is go to school for 14 years and then get out in the marketplace and be a doctor or be a lawyer so that we can begin to feel good about ourselves so other people feel good about us. We've all been taught what has to happen first to be happy. But you know what? It's the emperor's new clothes. It's all a lie. Why do so many people drink alcohol to excess? Why do people smoke cigarettes? Why is cocaine the #1 selling retail product in North America with over $100 billion in sales? These are all devices that people have learned to use to try and change the way they feel, to try and make themselves feel good, to feel happy. But the problem is none of them work long term. Even the highest high that a person can get from cocaine only lasts a short period of time. And the contrast when a person crashes to their normal state is intense. That's where the addiction comes from. What we've got to learn to do is tap into the natural drug, if you will, because it's not a drug. It's the natural source that's within every one of us at every moment of our life. We've got to stop buying into this false idea that something on the outside will ever make us happy, whether it be accomplishment or cocaine. Neither one's going to do it. Not long term. Plus, you cannot imagine the difference of joy that's inside of you if you just allow yourself to feel it. You can be happy right now. And if you doubt it, think about something. Have you ever seen a newborn baby? What are newborn babies like? They're happy about everything, aren't they? They're happy about the sky. They're happy about a smile. They're happy when they pass gas. And the people around them are happy to go, isn't that cute? Look at this little baby. Oh, this is so cute. And we get happy about this stuff too. It's funny how human beings are. We think we're going to get the happiness on the outside. But where does it really come from? Yeah, you know, it's the inside. And nothing on the outside is ever going to give it long term. You say, yeah, but I made my $1 million and I felt happy. For how long? I did it too. It was kind of a neat feeling. But it wasn't what I thought it would be. And as soon as it was done, it was over. You know, you get a new relationship. You say, well, the relationship I'm in, that's not making me happy. I need a new relationship. And what happens? You're with this new person. Everything's great. You're so excited. You feel so close to them. You think about them constantly. You wake up thinking about them. You call them up in the night and say, gosh, you know, were you thinking of me? And they say yes. And you feel so good. And how long does that last? Anywhere from 15 years to 15 minutes to 15 seconds. And then all of a sudden it changes slightly. Because all the things that you're looking for on the outside only provide temporary feelings of joy. But you know what's exciting? Inside of you at this moment as you listen to my voice, there's an unlimited sense of happiness and joy. It is your natural state. And it's the thing that you unleash, but you only unleash it when you meet the rules of your conditioning. What do I mean? Well, think about it. What does it take for you to be happy? What really does it take for you to feel totally joyous inside? Will you be drunk with joy? Not with alcohol, with joy. Well, you just felt incredible inside. What has to happen? What has to happen for you personally? Do you got to change the world? Do you got to just touch another person's life? Do you got to read a book? You got to watch a TV program? You got to listen to some music? Could you just feel it? See, when you listen to the music or you make a difference, in those moments, who creates that feeling inside of you? Isn't it really just you? That stuff's inside waiting to get out. But you have these rules about what has to happen. If X, Y, and Z occurs, then I can allow myself to feel good. What if you changed the rules and made happiness a natural way of living? See, one of my favorite places to go in the world is Fiji, the Fijian Islands. In fact, I own a resort there now. And I went there originally, to achieve, to succeed, to go with friends, to see a portion of the world, to be a world traveler, to go buy some property so I could be really intelligent and have a place in paradise. But, something happened when I got there. I spent all this time to try and get to Fiji, to get to where I could be happy. And along the way, I was in terrible shape. And my wife and I stopped in Hawaii along the way to split the trip in half. And I'll never forget that day sitting on the beach in Hawaii in quote-unquote paradise with all this beauty around us. And we were freaking out because we had all these things we had to do. And here we are going to take off. And we really couldn't take off because if we did that, it would mean all these other things. And if we didn't do this, it would mean that. If we didn't do this, it would mean that. It would mean pain, 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 unhappiness, frustration, anger, maybe even some depression. The point is, we finally made it to Fiji. We've traveled for 11 hours by flight. I'm totally fried. Now, we get into a car, and it's hot outside. Now, I don't like it when it's hot because, see, heat and humidity does not make me happy. So I was very angry that I could travel 11 hours, and I asked in advance. I asked the travel agent, I said, is it humid in Fiji? He said, no. I got there, and it was burning up at 6:30 in the morning. I was sweating. I was saturated. I was so angry. I wanted to get on the plane and leave. I was not a happy camper. So what do we do? Well, we drove for 2 hours to go to this hotel that the travel agent said is one of the 10 top hotels in the world. I was so excited. We pulled up about 8:30 a.m. One lone Fijian walked out front. The place was horrible. It was all beat up, and I'm not going to tell you the name because I don't want to tear down the hotel, but this is not the place to go to. All I can tell you is they put me in this little tiny room. I'm 6'7". My head is scraping on the ceiling. There's no telephone. There's no TV. There's no radio. I'm going, where is civilization? I can't be happy here. I thought, well, at least I'm going to get into the ocean. Because, see, I had this picture inside my head that if I could just go into this absolutely beautiful ocean and just enter into it, then I would be happy. And I went out there, and you couldn't get to the ocean until you put on your tennis shoes and walked half a mile out on coral so you could step over the edge. And then it began to rain. Now I was really unhappy. The bottom line is I got so angry, I got so frustrated. I felt like a nice little victim. And I thought, no, I can be happy. I can do something to change this. And so, sure enough, I made it to the one phone in the building. And I called some of the other islands. I said, what's your weather like? They said, it's sunny and beautiful. I said, where are you? They told me. I said, I'm coming there. I'll rent a plane. I'll do whatever it takes. I must go where I can be happy. Well, sure enough, what happens? He said, where are you? I told him. He said, well, the reason it's so hot there is because you're on the humid side of that one big island. That's the only place that's like that. I thought, how is it I managed to go to the only place that doesn't meet my needs? So sure enough, I get in a car. I jump in the plane. I fly to this island. We land on this island. I realize there's only one phone on this island as well. Freaks me out. How am I going to make my calls? How am I going to stay in touch? I get out on the beach. I'm sitting there on the beach. My wife and I were totally exhausted. We're emotionally drained because we worked so hard for so long to get to a point where we could be happy. We're sitting on the beach. We finally walk in the water. And you know what? The minute we got in the water, we were happy. It was amazing. It was crystal clear, and you could just look through it. And I mean, the very beginning part was like champagne color. As it went out a little further, it was that, beautiful turquoise. And as it went out even further, it was azure blue. And I knew that now I could be happy because here we were, and the water was like, 89 degrees. It was magnificent. And we had such a great time. Now I got a question for you. Did we have to travel 11 hours, go to 3 or 4 hotels, rent little private planes so we could make it to a beach to feel happy? Yes, absolutely, because we were conditioned to feel that way. Did we really have to do it? No way. You know what Fiji has taught me, and the reason I go back there? To be happy, no. I go back there for one simple reason. Because while I was there, I had experiences that changed my life because they taught me where real happiness comes from. Because of all the places in the world I've had the good fortune to travel to, I would say as a generalization, the people of Fiji have been taught that happiness is a natural state of mind. See, I traveled and I got on a plane, and I wasn't satisfied, by the way, just to sit on the beach. Of course not. I must accomplish to be happy. I must achieve. I must do something. So sure enough, I rented this private little seaplane. And my wife and I took this and we landed in, island after island. There are 300 little islands in Fiji. It's really an amazing place. And we kept landing. We landed in the Blue Lagoon and walked out on these private islands, and we were absolutely in ecstasy. And eventually, though, we started staying in places, and we got a chance to know the Fijian people. And one day we decided to drive out 2.5 hours in this one island to see this piece of property that I was supposed to buy so I could be happy. And so sure enough, we drive out there and we jumped in this taxi cab, and this man took us down what he called the Hibiscus Highway, which was actually a dirt road. And as we drove down the Hibiscus Highway where bridges are basically 2 planks across the river, and sure enough, you're driving along and this guy's going 50 miles to 60 miles an hour, smacking coconuts flying everywhere, dust flying in the air, and we're trying to go out to find this property so that we can find something to buy so we can feel happy. And we get all the way out there and it's pouring rain, and it was terrible and I hated it. And instead of feeling bad, though, somehow I guess the Fijian people began to influence me because no matter where we drove along this Hibiscus Highway, the Fijian men and women would jump up, shake their hands in the air and scream, "Bula, bula, bula," which means welcome, be happy, we love you. And they did it consistently, not because they were happy to see a tourist or because they were taught to, because that's just the way they live, because they believe happiness is the natural state. And we got out to the property, and it wasn't what we wanted. But you know what? I had so much fun in the process that I didn't have to get the goal anymore to feel good. That was a nice little lesson. That, yeah, I could pursue the goal, but I might enjoy the process along the way. Maybe I'll come up with a better goal. Who knows? And along the way, we saw these wonderful children, and my wife said, "Hey, do you think we could stop and take a picture of these kids?" I said, "Yeah, but let's ask permission to be respectful." So sure enough, we pulled aside, and I went up to this group, and it was in this village. Now, bear in mind, here we are, 11,000 miles away from home, out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, on this one island called Vanuatu, which is one of the northernmost islands in the entire group. And now we're 2.5 hours into the jungle, and we're on the edge of the water, and here's this little village on stilts. And I looked over and saw a group of big Fijian men, and one of them approached me, and I tried to communicate to them, and I said, "Hi, I was just wondering if we could take a photograph of your daughter." And this man said, "Hi, my name is Joe." In the middle of this village, in the middle of nowhere. He said, "Certainly you could take a picture. Would you like to come in and join us for some grog?" And I don't drink anything, alcohol or anything else, but I thought, what the heck? Let's go check this out. So here I am on this village, and he then told me that my wife had to stay outside. If you listen to the relationship section of this Power Talk, you can imagine the kind of impact that had. But my wife went over, and she had a chance to visit with the women of that culture, and there are different rules about their conditioning. So I went in this little room, and I'm in this room, and there's about 35 Fijian men. And as I entered, all I could see were those big smiles because it was dark. The sun was just going down. And they were all around this big, giant wooden bowl full of this muddy, water-looking substance they called kava. And they all seemed so happy. They just smiled. They didn't know who I was from Adam, but they just were like so loving. It was unbelievable. And so I sat down and sat in a circle with them, and they started asking me questions and where I was from, what's going on, because they'd see like one visitor a year out in this village, literally. And so I sat down there, and they said, well, listen, this is our great ceremony, and we would like you to participate with us. And they said, here's how it works. What you do is you drink this stuff, and you clap your hand 3 times, and you say, bula, bula, bula. I said, hey, I'm up for it. Let's go for it. So I drank this stuff, and sure enough, clapped my hands, bula, 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 and they all did the same. And it tasted like dirt. It tasted terrible. It was like drinking muddy water. I thought, how could they possibly drink this and make themselves feel happy? I guess they've been conditioned very much like people who learn to smoke cigarettes to feel happy, or drink alcohol, or go to a movie. Not that there's anything wrong with it, just that we've been conditioned and that's the way to do it. Bottom line for them, it's drink muddy water. And you know what? It really works. It works as well as what we've been conditioned by advertisers to believe, that we buy that car, we're going to feel good. It seems to work. And as I sat there talking with these guys, I turned to these men one by one and I asked them, I said, you all seem so happy. How come you're happy? And they just smiled and said, because that's what life's about. I said, what do you mean that's what life's about? I said, what's the purpose of life? And they grinned at me and said, to be happy, of course. What else is there? And they just grinned and giggled like, gosh, they weren't like judging me, but gosh, don't you know? What are you, new? You know, and I thought to myself, could life really be that simple? And I felt so good. I felt so loved and appreciated. And they all said, let's have Tony have another one. And I thought, oh no, right? They said, here, Tony, and they give me another half of a coconut full of the stuff, because that's the glasses they use. They cut a coconut in half, they put this muddy water in it. And I said, well, they said, oh, go ahead. So sure enough, I drank it, clapped my hands, bula, bula, bula. My mouth tasted like heck. And I thought, oh, gosh. And I smiled real big. And they all said, oh, this is great for Tony. Let's have Tony have another one. And after about 12 little coconuts full of kava, I was ready to leave. I went outside. And I said, can you show me how you make this stuff? I want to try and distract them. But as I spent more and more time with them, I was unbelievably touched by their love, by their sensitivity, by their way of approaching life. And after we looked at how they grew kava and all the years they spent to get this incredible root that was supposed to make them happy, they decided to break a rule. By the way, breaking rules can sometimes be useful, especially when your rules are limiting you. Something to consider. The rule they broke is women aren't supposed to be allowed in this kava hall, but they allowed my wife to come in. And she wasn't insulted by being on the outside to start with. She knew she was more than some custom. And she wanted to be respectful of their customs as well. But she was really acknowledged, and we came in and we sat down on the floor together. They brought in a kerosene lamp, which they never used, but it was a special occasion. And pretty soon the room was filled with almost the entire village. And we all sat down and they began to sing to us in these incredible voices that I'll never forget. And all I can remember is feeling more love and more happiness than I can remember experiencing in years and years and years. And what was interesting was, I wasn't doing a seminar. I wasn't doing a tape. I wasn't writing a book. I wasn't, going out and changing the entire world. I wasn't making bunches of money. I wasn't flying my helicopter. I wasn't receiving accolades. I was just being with other people and allowing my natural state to flow from me. The natural state that we pursue so much called happiness. This natural feeling, this natural state of just feeling good because you're alive. And I remember these children looking me in the eyes with a level of depth and intensity that felt like they were looking right into my soul. And then them smiling, and how that lit up my entire being. And there came a point when it was time to go, because here we are in the middle of the jungle, and we knew that our friends back at the hotel probably be worried about us. But they didn't want us to leave. They want us to stay. You know what was great? They didn't want anything from us. Just our happiness, just to be with us, just to share those special feelings that only human beings can share with each other. And so just before we left, they sang us a final song, which we've now grown to love, and we've heard it over and over again. It's a goodbye song that's traditional for the Fijian people. And as they sang the song about coming back and visiting with them again, I began to cry. I realized this was a part of myself that I'd not felt enough, even though I was out there making this difference, even though I could be proud about what I've accomplished in my life. All those things were not giving me the same level of happiness I was having just being there with these people. And it gave me a lesson in life that I've not forgotten, one that's enhanced my life at a whole new level. And as we left and waved goodbye, I thought, we've got to come back here sometime, just to thank these people for teaching us what being civilized really is. Maybe civilization doesn't make us very civilized. Maybe what it does is disassociate us. Maybe it conditions us to believe that something on the outside will give us the inner joy that already exists. And what I've learned to do is resist the conditioning. Doesn't mean that I can't enjoy it. Doesn't mean I can't see it. But I guess what I've learned, and I hope that you and I will remember, I know we already know it, but you and I will remember, is that oftentimes we mistake an occasion we utilize to allow ourselves to feel joy as being the source of our joy. I'll give you an example. I remember one time I was with my youngest son, Jarek, and we were in our car and the car broke down. And it was a hot day. And we were out in the San Gabriel Valley and it was smoggy and it was tough. And we were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for a tow truck to come, and it didn't come. And so instead of being all angry and upset, I thought to myself, this is stupid. I'm with my son. I can have a wonderful time. And the experience transformed because I asked a better question. I said, what could I do right now that would create joy for Jarek and myself? And I began to focus on different things we could talk about, and it turned into this special moment that I won't forget for many, many years. And we had this incredible bond and love right there, just in that moment, sitting in this hot car on this smoggy day, waiting for things to happen. And I could have focused on where we're waiting for it to happen and been upset, but instead I focused on what can we do right now to create more joy? And you know what? We get whatever we focus on. That's how powerful the human brain is. And what's interesting, though, is how my son interpreted it. I remember about a couple months later, we were talking about something else, and all of a sudden I knew he wanted some attention. He said, Dad, can we go sit in the car out in the sun? I thought, isn't that interesting? See, it's okay for us to say, well, a little kid doesn't know better, so they link up that the car is the source of that connection and happiness. But don't you and I do the same thing as adults? Don't we start thinking it's the education or the PhD or the car or the home or the income or the level of success in business or the quality of the article we write or whatever the case may be? Haven't we been seduced, at times at least? Maybe it's time we realize that it is the emperor's new clothes and that what we're doing is we're trying to cover up what's natural. That really our happiness is always there inside of us, and there's more of it there than you can ever get from something from the outside. So the question of this tape is, how do we achieve that ultimate goal? And by the way, you may be saying, well, this sounds really nice. You've been really nice and sensitive, and I like these kinds of feelings, but how is this going to help me in my job? How's this going to help me in my life? I mean, what are you saying? I should just go bliss out in Fiji? Is that what you're saying to me? No, all I'm talking about is balance. Life is a balance. I'm talking about having that balance. And I'll tell you, one of the most powerful changes that shifted my life, it's just an idea. But it's an idea that if you were to apply it, as simple as it is, if you were to actually live it, it could instantly change the quality of your life. And that idea is simply this. All of my life, I was conditioned to believe that if I achieved enough, if I helped enough people, if I did enough things, that I would be happy. So I was working very hard so I could achieve, so I could eventually be happy. And one day, I got this new concept in my head. What if I happily achieved? What if my goal was not to achieve, but my goal was to be happy? And that while I was happy, I was going to do things that contributed and made a difference, which will be great references for the power that I had when I unleashed and experienced the ultimate human emotion. I got to tell you what, the idea of putting happiness as higher on my list of values than achievement was a little scary for me at first. Because I thought, boy, if I feel happy, then I won't be driven to achieve. Maybe I won't want to work as hard. Maybe I won't help as many people. Maybe all these things that I identify with my life, maybe I won't have that same level of motivation. Maybe I got to keep achieving because that makes me, a person who contributes. And then eventually I can be happy. I don't want to take that away because I'll lose my drive. I was wrong. I was scared, but I was wrong. What happened was when I finally decided I was going to be happy along the way, that life was not an outcome, that it was a process, that I would achieve things and say, is this all there is? Unless along the way I enjoyed the process, that I was going to spend more of my time in life in the process than I was achieving. And if I wanted to be happy more of the time, I got to get committed to that idea. The minute I started living that way, my life changed and I went to a whole nother level. I thought I was successful before. I thought, boy, look, I got my act together. All I can tell you is I got a new level of depth. So how do we create this real balance? How can we take what we've talked about thus far in this tape and make it practical so you can really use it, so you can really experience more of this big promise I've been telling you about, of that joy inside of you that you know is there? Well, let me give you 8 points. Number 1, we've already talked about. The first key to unleashing your happiness is to remember it's already there, to remember it's your natural state. Just think about it. Think about what's inside of you. I think that most people's unhappiness, that really the root of all human misery is the ignorance of our true nature and power. That it's all inside of us, it's not on the outside. See, most of us have been conditioned to believe that being happy is difficult instead of what's always there. See, I believe to be unhappy, you got to pervert your reality. Now, I've managed to pull this off in my own life, and many times, as I'm sure you have, but the reality of our existence is joy. In order to be unhappy, you got to develop false beliefs about what life is. You got to begin to believe that all these things have to occur for you to feel appreciative for this thing called life. In fact, we've developed all these rules about all these different things that specifically have to occur at specific times in specific ways before we get to have those great feelings that we want inside. We begin to think that events are the source of our happiness, or that another person is the source of our happiness, or our kids are the source of our happiness, or our career is the source of our happiness. We start thinking we need another person to think that we can feel love inside of us, that it's coming from him or her. That's their enchanting words or those beloved whispers in our ears. That's what makes us feel really good. That's what makes us feel loved. That's what makes us feel happy. But we seldom stop to really consider, what are those feelings of love or security or peace? Where are they coming from? When we feel them in that moment, where are they coming from? Are they like sneaking out of that person's lips or mouth and into our ear and into our body, make us feel good? Of course not. We're unleashing those within ourselves in that moment. But you know what happens is, we have a situation like this where we feel good for a moment because of something on the outside. We've met one of our rules, and we think that that's real happiness, when we've really got an infinite reservoir of joy that's deep inside of us that goes beyond anything you've ever felt before. And when something outside of us triggers it, it's usually like a little tiny trickle of joy that flows out. And what do we think? We go, boy, I'm so lucky that I have that person in my life, which you probably are, but that's not the source of your happiness. Because if that's the source of your happiness, what if that person never goes away? A little scary, huh? Or what if they pass away? Or what if something separates you at some time? You see, the fear that most people have in their lives of not being happy is because they think it's coming from the outside. They experience the object of their senses, and when they taste it, they think, boy, that's joy is coming from that object, from that person, from that event. But in fact, we're only tasting our own inner feelings that are existing continuously. They're constant. And all that sweetness and all that love that you want so bad is flowing through your veins in your heart right now. There's a sea of real power inside of you. Everyone has this place inside of them, and all we've got to do is tap into it, touch it. But you can't do that as long as you believe happiness is on the outside, as long as you believe happiness is a reward. Happiness is not a reward. The reward is life itself. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out and strive to achieve or contribute or to make a difference, or do something for society, or make money, or go do things that make you have fun and play. I'm just saying, don't hold yourself hostage by the false belief that anything outside you will give you the real joy. And instead, develop an insatiable curiosity for digging deeper inside yourself. And when you feel good, saying, where'd that come from? Where can I get more of that? Instead of the outside, how could I let myself feel that way even more? Happiness is nothing but a state. Feeling good is a state of mind and emotion. And you can have it at any moment simply by claiming it. How do you claim it? 2 ways. 1, change the way you're using your body. If you're not feeling happy right now, I guarantee you may be doing several things. 1 is you may not be breathing. Now you say, what are you talking about? I'm breathing. Sure you are. But are there times when like you're frustrated or you're angry or you're concerned? Does your breathing pattern change? I can guarantee it does. What about your facial expressions? See, if you change your facial expressions, you immediately change how you feel. Try this right now. No one's around. They're not noticing. Put a big, stupid, silly grin on your face. Oh, come on. Nobody's going to notice. If you're in your car, turn to some other person who's in the traffic and grin at them with that big, huge grin and watch what happens. They'll think you're on drugs. It's okay. Just go ahead and do it. Try it. Do it right now. Come on. Smile real big. And while you're doing this big smile on your face, thinking this is stupid and crazy, notice how you feel. See, you have 80 different muscles in your face. If you change the way you use them, you can make yourself feel happy. And I bet you already know the ways to do it. In fact, if I asked you to get depressed, you could pull that off, couldn't you? The point is simple. You can change the way you use your body and change your level of happiness.